name is Justin, and I'm an addict. And thanks to my God, the steps, and the fellowships of other addicts, I am sober, one day at a time, since June 19th, 2015. And for that, I am beyond grateful. Welcome to the RICO 12 speaker meeting. We are an organization whose addictions include alcohol, drugs, lust and sex, food and gambling, just to name a few. We come together from all places, faiths, and backgrounds to learn the similarities of addiction and to gain tools and hope from others who are walking a similar path. We invite recovering addicts with at least 1 year sobriety and who are actively working their recovery in their respective fellowships to share their experience, strength, and hope on a live Zoom meeting each Friday at noon Central for about 20 to 25 minutes. Then we, the live audience, get the opportunity to ask questions of the speaker for another 20 to 25 minutes. In order to ask questions, please type them in the Q&A link at the bottom of your Zoom window. If you are hearing this podcast recorded or would like to participate as a live audience member in the future or even be a guest speaker in a future meeting, please go to www.rico12.com. That's RECO12, like recovery 12 step, or rico12.com, to learn more and submit your email address there to receive weekly invitations or to submit to become a guest speaker. RICO 12 is an ad-free service, and we appreciate your help in keeping it that way. We gratefully accept contributions to help cover the cost of the Zoom platform, podcast platform, web hosting, and administrative costs. To contribute, you can go to rico12.com/support, or you can click the link to the PayPal link that will be in the chat in the live meeting or in the show notes afterwards. When you contribute, please specify the meeting number. This is meeting number 27. Last week's speaker was Michelle C., and her talk on finding her higher power, it was powerful. If you haven't yet heard it, go check it out, along with any of or all of the other previous 26 speaker meetings, wherever you listen to your podcasts. And if you found value in this service, please take a moment to go to the podcast platform of your choosing and leave a rating and review. It helps us work our 12th step by carrying the message of recovery to more addicts who suffer. One more word about our speakers before we introduce today's speaker. When we line up a speaker for a meeting, we generally ask them to seek guidance on what and how to present so that they can reflect the light that they have been given. That light will inspire hope, meaning, worth, and growth in us, the listening audience, and hopefully living audience. Now, let's introduce our guest speaker for today, Antonella. Her topic will be steps 10, 11, and 12, living in the solution. This is her intro in her own words. My name is Antonella. My parents separated when I was 2 years old. I had a very dysfunctional childhood, which led to a life of unmanageability and maladaptive thinking, acting in self-will. Using drugs, alcohol, and food and relationships for ease and comfort to cope. In the midst of an unhappy marriage, my 14-year-old was expelled from school for using drugs. It was suggested to us to send my child to a treatment center. It was there, when I read the 12 steps on the wall, that I realized I needed this help for myself. This started my recovery journey and the qualification to several 12-step programs. Take it away, Antonella. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Justin. So I'm Antonella. I am an addict, and as mentioned in my qualification, I've had many issues, and I guess that thinking back, when my son had his challenge, it was a really difficult time for us in our life. But today, when I look back, I see it as a gift, because if it had not been for him having to go to recovery and for me wanting to support him, I would never be here. So, and there's been a lot of progression and change. So I was in NA for 10 years. And at the end of 2 years, I had almost gotten up to 200 pounds in weight. I was so unhappy in my marriage, even though I was in the program and I was staying clean and I was grateful in step studies, something was just not working, because I was still seeking out something to handle my ease and comfort, and that was food. So I decided that it was suggested to me. And one thing I've learned is that when fellows make suggestions in these rooms, it's God. it's God talking. So I've learned to listen to those suggestions. And so what I did is I pursued a program called Overeaters Anonymous. And I was there for 15 years and simultaneously attended AA meetings because my food and my being clean did not allow me to drink. But I'm not alcoholic. I don't have a problem with alcohol, but I'm absolutely aware of the fact that I need to be very mindful when I choose to consume and why and my motives. And, practicing honesty helps me with that tremendously. I had after my divorce and being single and just being out in the world, I came to a point where I decided to leave program. I left all program, and I was doing okay for a while, or I thought I was doing okay for a while. I actually wasn't, and I know that today. My life became unmanageable, specifically with relationships. And the bottom that I experienced in 2017 had to do with having an accident. I slipped and fell in a restaurant, and I wasn't able to work. I lost clients. I was in financial fear, and I was reaching out to the men in my life in a way that talks about in the big book, reaching out for a lifesaver. And it just wasn't working. And I was doing everything that I thought I needed to do to get the support and the security and the love and the safety, from these men. And it wasn't happening. And it progressively became more unmanageable. The program that I'm in today, actually, I'll back up a bit. So in all the unmanageability and my sadness and unhappiness, I had reached several times where I just wanted to die. I would literally say, God, this is not working. I'm not able to make this work. Everything will just be solved if I just don't wake up in the morning. And fortunately, that did not happen. But that's the point. That's how I felt. So what I've learned from being many years in program is when I reach out to my higher power and when I surrender, that I usually get an answer. And what had come up for me, I just started praying for the willingness, and you're going to hear me use that word because it saved me many, many times. I started praying for the willingness, and I was drawn to go to a women's retreat at a very, very special place. And I know that when I went there with an intention that God would help me. And in that retreat, I ran into a couple of women that I knew from the past, from other fellowships, and we were just casually talking, and it just came out. Oh my God, I'm involved with someone, and it's I don't see him for months, or then I'll see him in the middle of the night, and I can't leave him, and I'm away. I'm with him for a year, or I'm away from him for a year, and then I just break down. And it was this craziness. And they both looked at each other and said, "Have you ever considered a program called SLAA?" And I looked at them, and I had gone to a meeting actually, maybe, I don't know, 3-4 years ago, but never stayed. And I knew right then and there that I needed to do that. That Sunday at the end of the retreat, I gave the woman a ride to the subway, and then I decided, I'm just going to drive her downtown. And I was telling her about this conversation, and she meanwhile was Googling on her phone a meeting. And it just so happened that 15 minutes from where she lived, this meeting was starting. And I just knew God was just pushing me. I just went straight to that meeting, and I continued to go to meetings since. And I got to an all-women's meeting that absolutely changed my life. I'd hit a bottom, and I was ready to do whatever it is that I needed to do. And I love the word in the big book that says we didn't balk. Because of being in NA, because of being in OA, because of what my son went through, I knew that if I wanted to survive, that if I wanted to really make a change, that I needed to do this in total surrender, because the pattern was clear. Everything had become progressive, and I was getting worse and not better, and getting older, and just, being in such self-pity that I wasted so many years of my life. But the wonderful thing is I got into this program and I started working it. I actually got 2 sponsors, and I finished doing the steps, and I made a decision that I was not going to date or even think about dating until I'd completed my steps, until I saw a sign from God. And I love this. My OA sponsor taught me these words years ago. You'll know when you see it in neon sign. God will send you a neon sign. And so, that's what I did. And I did try a little bit of dating. And in our program, we do it with boundaries. We have a dating plan. And I tried, and it just didn't work. I tried a dating apps and it didn't work. And I've just surrendered to God. And I've just surrendered that right now. And I just keep working my program and waiting for that neon sign. Lost my train of thought for a second. Things weren't. I still felt a lot of dis-ease. I noticed that I was reaching out in areas for ease and comfort. I was still 100% absent in this program, but I was reaching out in other things instead of really reaching out for my higher power. And so there was a lot of just unhappiness, and still a lot of crying, and of course being a lot of pity because of this accident. I was in a lawsuit. So I decided that the answer for this was to find another sponsor and to start working the steps. And I'm grateful for this man that came into my life, because we worked the steps in a way that I've never worked them before. And I've done the steps many times and always gotten something out of them. And the beautiful thing is that every time I do it, I get more and more, because I go deeper and I learn how to be honest. Because one of the things, all the horrible things that happened to me as a child, what I got really good at was being in a place of denial, shoving things down so deep, either with food or with acting out or with drugs, that I didn't have to cope or feel, and left me emotionless. So half the time I didn't know what was going on. And this particular experience working was phenomenal to get me connected. And I had another spiritual awakening. The other thing that I wanted to say is, I was clean from pot. That was my drug of choice for quite a long time. But I decided to get a medical prescription after this accident, because doctors were just giving me prescriptions for drugs that I knew would be deadly. And at first it was great, but then it became unmanageable. I was high 24 hours a day and couldn't stop. And things were breaking down again. And that's where I started praying for the willingness. And a miracle happened. Someone came into my life in NA and, reached out a hand. And I have been clean now almost 2 years from the pot. So that's great as well. And I'm sorry if I'm jumping all over, but hopefully it will make sense. So at the end of working these steps, I really felt like I had a spiritual awakening. It talks about in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous that a lot of things in the promises that came true, and a lot of these did. And the main one was the financial fear, having lost clients, worrying about my future, thinking that I had to have a man in my life in order to survive. These things have just fallen away. Fear of people has gotten better. I still will be in fear if I have a situation with someone, but, a lot of miracles. And what the greatest miracle that happened to me was that I was able to start working this program in a way that I started sponsoring. And that's step 12. So I want to try and kind of tie in 10, 11, and 12 in order. So maybe that's what I'll do at this point. And Justin, will you give me a I don't know, maybe a 7-8 minute time up or.
Yeah. I'll give you about at 7 minutes. I'll wave my hand at you like
Okay,
that.
beautiful. Just
All
so that
right.
I can, right. So the reason when someone asks me to be of service, what I've learned is to always say yes. And when I realized yesterday that this was going to be taped and people were calling and saying, "Oh, is that you?" I started getting nervous and scared. And because my perfectionism was kicking in. Oh my God, if I don't do a good job, people are going to think this. And all my unworthiness and self-doubt, all these things started coming up. And my solution to that is, and that's, part of step 10, being honest in the moment, being in conscious contact with my higher power every moment, being in touch with what's going on and being able to do a quick inventory. Because if I'm not able to do this, either at the end of the night or in the moment, I'm in trouble. My train, my car starts getting derailed. I go down pity pot lane. I go into darkness instead of light. I go into negativity instead of positivity. And that's another gift that I've gotten is I don't stay in victim and pity and entitlement and unworthiness. I don't stay there long. I don't want to be there. They don't serve me. For years, I have to tell you, and I didn't even realize I was doing this. These things were serving me in a way to get the attention and the validation, even though they were negative. I was still using them. And I just, one of the miracles in these last couple of years is that I'm done with that stuff. I don't want to. And yeah, I don't want to go there. It doesn't serve me. So different ways of doing a daily step. There's a list that can be printed off the website, and it just says, my daily step 10. And the beautiful thing is it has liabilities and then it has, assets. And you could do it like a chart. I know my sponsor did it. And you just go down and tick off, was I in resentment, false pride, arrogance, self-loathing, envy? Was I jealous? Most of these things I don't experience anymore. But the ones that I do, I have to put pen to paper. I have to pick up that phone that usually weighs 1,000 friggin' pounds, and I have to call somebody. And I try and share this as well with my sponsees. I don't have the answers. I'm not perfect. I'm just an addict. I love this. My sponsor says, I'm just another bozo on the bus, and doing the best that I can, and talking to God for direction when I don't know. And if I don't know, I just say I don't know. It's a simple. That's gotten easy. Like, I don't know. I think you need to ask someone else. But step 10, 11, and 12. Those steps are they're to sustain us. And step 10 has also been referred to a maintenance step. But when I went to visit my son in treatment, there was a man there, Fred Holmquist. Oh my God! If you ever get a chance to look up this fellow, he talked about, and I believe this because I've seen it with myself. When I went to NA 25 years ago, I'm not going to mention, but the amount I was using was very small. When I started using here, it was small, and then it became incredible. It was 24 hours a day. So I know that my disease is progressive. I've seen it, with all my, with all aspects, how I acted out and how I felt in relationships 20 years ago and what I did before I got here in this program, being involved with, 3 men that were literally dry wells, no water in them, is proof to me that this disease is progressive. So what I understand about step 10 is that, it is about, we continue to take personal inventory. And when we continue to take personal inventory and continue to set right and new mistakes as we go along. I know that my disease is progressive. So if my disease is progressive and it goes up, to me, maintenance reminds me of my diet days. I have to keep a level like this. So if I have a disease that goes like this, I also need a spiritual program that goes like this. It has to keep expanding and keeps getting stronger. Because even in my disease, what I've learned and what I've heard is that even in my recovery, my disease keeps getting stronger. So I have to constantly be doing all all this work. Steps 1 to 3, prepare me in this program. Steps 4 to 9, transform me. Steps 10, 11, and 12, they're my sustenance and maintenance steps. I love the spiritual principle that's attached with step 10, and it's perseverance. Progress, not perfection. We just do the best that we can. I fall down, I get up. As long as I've learned from my mistakes, as long as I ask God for forgiveness, it's all good. It's all good. Step 11 is pretty much my favorite step. And the reason it's my favorite step is because I can do it so many different ways. I recently bought myself in this COVID lockdown and meditation cushion and pillow. Do I use it all the time? No. But you know what? I did this morning. I've been doing it more and more. And the beauty of it is that I can sit and I can just be quiet and I can just listen to God. I can actually, there's one particular practice that I do is actually called How to Listen to God. And I set my timer for 10 minutes. I reach out and I say, okay, God, what is your will for me today? And especially if I have a concern or something that's causing me angst, I will reach out and ask this question. Then I close my eyes, I'm quiet, and I just listen. And then when my timer goes off, I just start writing. And I don't question what I write. I just write everything down. And then and one of the things that for sure has been trouble for me is I have a tremendous self-will. And a lot of times I even wonder if I'm in God's will or not. And that's something that I've been praying for, to be more connected, with God's will. And just by asking. So if I want to be sure of the direction, especially if something's serious, and I just ask myself 4 questions: is it coming from a place of love? Is it honest? Is it unselfish? And I'm going, okay, 7 minutes. All right, thank you. And there's another one, and I'm going blank on it, but I ask myself questions. So I can sit and I can meditate. I can read certain prayers. I have a beautiful meditation book, Around the Year with Emmett Fox. And it was recommended to me years ago to get closer to my higher power. Because when I got here, I would be walking around like this. I was just certain that God was just there with bolts, just shooting them down at me, because I felt like I was just such a pathetic piece of crap. Getting high in the back seat, eating uncontrollably, acting out with men, being in a place of tolerating unacceptable behavior. This is what I got good at, tolerating unacceptable behavior. And I was able to, and the reason I tolerated unacceptable behavior is because that's what my mother did all my life. She tolerated unacceptable behavior, and that's what I saw. And that's what I did. And it's very interesting that through the step work this year, I saw how I was my mother and ended up marrying my father, which is pretty scary. But, I'm awake now because of step work. I'm not asleep. When things get triggered, I can close my eyes and I can ask God to help me. I can go to the fear prayer on page 68 in the big book that just said, please, God, take away this fear and show me what to do. Some days I can't even get out of bed for different reasons. And I'll do that. And it's just like I'll brush my teeth and then I'll be in the kitchen. I'll get a phone call. I'm directed. I'm going to share the step 11 prayer at the end of this. So that's going to be pretty spectacular for me, because that's been a prayer that when people have done me wrong, and people have done me wrong lots, and I don't know what to do, my hands are tied, I read that prayer and it helps me tremendously. So I'm going to end. So the principle connected with step 11 is spirituality. And there's so many ways. And it says so in our literature, that we need to be open to all these ways. So step 12. So step 12, the spiritual principle attached with step 12 is service. and love. And, I was always worried about missing out. Um, Absolutely, I, self, and me. And never would have thought that I would have been in a place where I would have been able to, with total willingness and desire from the bottom of my heart, to help another person in recovery. And I am blessed that I have 3 sponsees right now. I did have another gal. She's struggling, and I feel that the way I'm working is not working for her, and that's okay. That's okay. I'm going to give her some time, and if I don't hear from her, I'll reach out, because that would be the kind and loving thing to do. But having the opportunity to be a sponsor, to relive these steps continuously, keeps me alive, keeps me on track, keeps me focused. Like I said before, this disease is progressive. Even in recovery, my disease is still growing. I mean, the other day I had a thought, with a man that I know that was just selfish. I was wanting to be held, and I immediately picked up the phone and I just checked in with my sponsor, and he just sent me the most beautiful, message. Antonella, step 7: be willing to do the things that we don't want to do. And just remembering that this fellow is a brother to me in this world that is also trying to move forward and recover, and it would be with wrong motive for me to do anything that would do that. And I learned that from doing my own step 9 work. Repetition. Because of these accidents, I've been rear-ended 3 times. My mind doesn't hold on to things, well, and I forget. So I need to be reminded. How wonderful to be reminded every day. I sit and read literature, and my book is all highlighted to show me where the directions are, where the warnings are, where the promises are, where the prayers are. So when I do this with someone, and it's joyful. And I see this whole COVID thing as a big God pause. It's just giving me an opportunity. And I've lost pretty well all my clients. And sometimes I go into that place of abandonment. But you know what? When I'm able to reach out and help somebody, it gets me out of self. But that's it. Bottom line, you know what? Wow. I know that I'm running out of time, and I'm just wondering what, I could possibly, I'll just end by saying this. Probably the greatest gift that I've gotten from this program is being a power of example to my 2 sons, who are both in recovery. My son is now 26 years clean and sober. My other son is program, and he works so hard, and I'm so proud of him. The greatest gift is that I've been able to forgive my parents for allowing me to, for abandoning me, allowing me to be abused, realizing that they were sick. So just so simple. And I just, have to have boundaries with my mother, who's still alive today. And I do. And I can be of service, and I can be kind and loving and tolerant. And so with that, I'll close. Thank you so much.
And Thank you so much. No, that's perfect. Perfect, Antonella. That was amazing. Really grateful for your story there. I loved one of the things that you shared that your sponsor told you, and it's very similar to something my sponsor told me. I was working my step 3, and I was in a meeting, and I came back afterwards, and I called him and I said, man, if these bozos can do this, I can do this too. And he laughed, and he just said, Justin, we are all bozos on the bozo bus. And I am probably the biggest bozo on that bozo bus. And he was, 20 something years sober. And I loved that. And I love how your sponsor said something very similar to you. And that just brought me great memories back from my own sponsor. Awesome. Well, thank you so much again. Now, before we read the questions that have come in, that will come in, and the ones that I've written, Would you mind sharing for about 60 seconds or so about the fellowship you attend and how that fellowship helps you, so that maybe others who are listening could go, that might be something that would help me?
So, the fellowship that my core fellowship today is Sex Love Addicts Anonymous. I also go to SAA as well. And how they have helped me is I was in recovery, and working very diligently in all my other programs. I never realized that I had this horrible disease, this sickness. And so the literature in this program woke me up, set me on fire, put a flashlight, LED, spotlight, whatever you want, on stuff that I totally was not aware of. Being able to sit in a room and read the preamble in a totally different way and be able to work the steps. And no one had ever really uh, had me focus on the things that happened to me as a child and all the trauma that was associated, that bring up these simple things of wanting to have attention, validation, acceptance, fear of doing this talk and being perfect. Like they're all traumas that I never realized. So it's such a gift. And just having the support and not feeling that that I'm an unworthy person, because it was very hard coming into the rooms and saying I'm a sex and love addict, because I didn't, every person has a different story. Pornography was not something for me, but there's other things for me that were very unhealthy, but most of all harmful to others, to myself, and unmanageable. So yeah, this program really helped to focus in on this and to help me wake up and get honest. It was like the final frontier, I call it.
Love that. And it seems like that fellowship up there and where you're at. Do you mind me saying where you're at?
No, not at all.
Okay, up in Toronto. Yeah. Up there in Toronto, the fellowship that you're in seems to be really strong. There's a lot of, several members of that fellowship have come and been a guest speaker on this
Yes.
podcast, and really grateful for that. And all of them are really solid. So it sounds like the program you've got going there is a solid program. Very cool. Thank you, Antonella. All right. So a reminder to our live audience, if you would like to ask Antonella a question, please type it in the Q&A bubble. Looks like two speech bubbles overlaying each other down at the bottom, and I'll relay those to her. And I've written several questions here, and we'll get a few questions asked and answered here over the next 20 minutes or so. So Antonella, a couple things that you said really got me thinking, and I wanted to ask you a couple questions to dig a little bit deeper. You talked about the first time you went into NA, I believe it is, that you said you said you were miserable for the first few years in sobriety. And I think that's a pretty common thing when people first come into rooms. The first couple of years of sobriety seem to be, pretty much hell, because a lot of them are white knuckling and just trying to get through on their own. How did you get through that first period and come out to where today it appears things are pretty healthy in your life?
Okay, so the question was, how did I come out of being in that place of being miserable in a, although I was able to stay clean. I did have a relapse. I did have a relapse, which really upset me. It was in the beginning, and that sometimes is common, that will happen. But what really kept me was the love of all the people. I got involved in a step study. I looked for step studies. I was constantly looking. And I think what really kept me going is that I was going to meetings with my son, and he was just a teenager. So we'd go to meetings together, and he actually used me as a sponsor. So I was really acting, as if, and going to lots of meetings. Oh my God, like I did the 90 meetings in 90 days. I did all of that. I took pride in getting my chips and sharing. So yes, I hope that answers. No,
thank you. I appreciate it. It was, kind of the diligence of continuing in the program, even when miserable. You mentioned that after, I think it was 15 years or so, you kind of fell out of program and went on. Why did you make that decision at that time? Was it kind of a complacency thing? I've got this, and I've got this, okay, and I can do this on my own, or what was that?
Um, okay, that's actually a great question, and I'm trying to think of something that there's actually a line here on page 85, and it says, "It's easy to let up on our spiritual program of action and rest on our laurels. So, Lord." Lots of good times. I was bodybuilding, I was fit, I was doing physio, I was relieved of pain. I was going to AA, but I wasn't an alcoholic, and I didn't feel connected. I was struggling with the concepts in overeaters, or not the concept. I was just struggling with the fact that I didn't feel connected. And I know today that it wasn't. It was because, God gives us a boat, but I have to row. So I was waiting for people to come to me and help me and save me. And when they didn't, I was taking it personally. And I left, and that was it, and I think I had a drink. I was on a holiday and I had a drink, and I thought, damn, I don't want to go back there and admit that I had a drink. I'm not an oh yeah, just I was oh yeah.
No, that's very good.
Me.
Yeah, but and then you found a fellowship that you felt accepted, and then you rode the boat. I mean, I think that's something that many people I see in meetings get in the boat and just think, hey, everybody else here is rowing. I'll just catch behind them and catch their draft and go along with them without rowing myself. And it's a tough one. All right, we got a question that came in from Zach. He says, hi, Antonella. I'm Zach, a recovering addict, and I struggle with anxiety, people pleasing, fear of the future, and decision paralysis. Sometimes I just feel stuck and my perfectionist mind is racing, and I end up just feeling no motivation to do anything. What tips do you have for dealing with anxiety on a daily basis and moving throughout daily tasks? Great question, Zach.
Yes. And hopefully my mind will remember them all. But the first one is anxiety. I've suffered tremendously for anxiety. That was one of the reasons that I reached out for the medication that I thought would help. And now what I do is I use an app called Spiritual Timer, and it doesn't cost you anything. And I have a 2-minute anxiety meditation that I found is 2 minutes, and I could put ear pods in, and I can go somewhere where I'm totally alone, and it's a beautiful, calming voice, and it's guided to use your breath. And that is absolutely unbelievable. And, at night, there's different ones. There's spiritual ones, there's podcasts, there's all different types that really, really help me. In the moment, when I think it was the perfectionism in this. I mean, I was going crazy last night. I had a sleepless night, I'll be honest. The perfectionism. And I had to get on my knees this morning and pray. And I had to get on the phone, like talking in the step 10 with my sponsor, and say, I'm going crazy right now. And I just needed her to remind me that I don't need to be perfect, that all I need to do is be of service. And the perfectionism it's a maladaptive thinking that I've developed because of unworthiness and because of self-doubt and because of abandonment, because of these things in my life. I know that, or I feel that I have to be so perfect. In my work, I drive myself crazy. My doctor therapist said the reason you're so good is because you're a perfectionism, but I suffer with that. Someone will walk away and be happy, and I'll still be questioning. So it's just constantly, I have it actually, this character flaw I have on a little chalkboard in my bedroom. When I do my 7-step prayer, I look at this and I just, it's having the willingness to have God take this away. And it's a process. It's a process. over and over. Was there another point there that I missed? The perfectionism, the anxiety, or something
Let's
else?
see. Stuck in perfectionist. Mind is racing, and I end up feeling no motivation to do anything.
Yeah, that'll help. And yeah, and then I just sort of go, oh, what the hell, nothing. But that's where my fear prayer, I need to turn constantly. And it's such a simple prayer, and just take the next right action. Picking up the phone, and that's hard. The moment that I reach out to someone, so I love different programs have different ways, So one program, hey, I need to clear. Another program, I need to check in. I need to get current. I just pick up the phone and I talk to someone. And that was always hard for me because I don't want to bother people, because I don't feel worthy. I don't want to deserve someone. I don't feel that I'm deserved. I don't want to bother them. And so the antidote to that was, when I pick up the phone and I call someone, I am helping them work their program. I am teaching them how to do the same thing when it comes their turn, because that's not easy, just to pick up the phone and ask for help.
Very good. I appreciate that. Awesome. All right. Another question. You mentioned the How to Listen to God program. Is that the Wally P program?
It
I love
is.
that. I
It
love
is.
that.
Yeah.
How does that, I mean, you mentioned how that works for you. You set a 10-minute timer, but how has that benefited you in your life using that practice of guidance of how to listen to God?
Well, because if I don't get up in the morning and have conscious contact, my self-will and my racing will start going all over the place. And then all of a sudden I'm disorganized, I'm feeling anxious, I'm feeling upset. But when I do that, it grounds me. It grounds me. It gets me connected. It makes me feel safe. It makes me feel peaceful. And, it gives me an answer, and it gives me a focus. I'm undisciplined. I need to have a focus. Um, and I need to do it more, to be honest. And I need to do it more, and not just do it, when I'm stuck and I'm struggling, to do it more. But again, I do the best I can. I have different practices. So yes, it's Wally P, and there's actually a great meeting that happens every Sunday afternoon. How to listen to God. I think you could just Google it, and you'll get the information.
Is it like a Zoom meeting? So it's open
Zoom
to, and
meeting,
it's
yes.
open.
And it's open to anyone from 2 to 3:30.
Okay.
Yeah, Rick R. Leads that, and there's another fellow, I'm going blank on his name.
Okay. What I'll do is I'll look that up. I'll put it in the show notes for anyone listening who would be interested in looking into that.
Yes.
I'll also put the spiritual timer app in the show notes as you reference that, as well
I
as the
just
how to
want to
listen.
share.
Yes.
So with spiritual, and I didn't get into this, and I had wanted to, but step 11, practicing step 11, and this is what I suggest to all my sponsees, and this is what I do every morning. I either read it, starting on the AM focus. It starts on awakening. Let us think about the 24 hours. We ask God to direct our thinking, especially asking. That is all on the spiritual app. There's a woman that reads it, and then you stay quiet, and then you meditate. It is so cool. On awakening.
No, that's great. I've avoided that one because I'm like, I don't want to read that much when I'm going into my step 11. I want to hear and listen. So that's awesome that that's part of that.
And
So
some days I just need to stay in bed those few extra minutes, and I was almost going to do that this morning, and I thought, no, today is a special day. I really need to get connected. I need to get on that meditation cushion, and I need to do it properly. So
very good. And this, I think this next question that I have for you piggybacks on the last one about, step 11 and how you do that. You mentioned how you pray for willingness, and the word willingness. I love that word. I think it's so key to recovery. I think it's key to pretty much everything in life is willingness to do whatever. Now, what does the practice of willingness look like to you? How do you become willing? What do you go through to get to that point?
well, it usually it manifests itself in unmanageability. So about 2 months ago, I was having a lot of unmanageability with my food, and I go to a lot of meetings. And I'm very busy in fellowship, and I'm grateful to do that. And I was in resistance about going back to this program because I didn't want to, admit that, that I needed help and that I wasn't normal, and I was kicking and screaming. So all I was doing is praying for the willingness to be willing. I just included that every day. I don't want to do this, but I'm just going to pray for the willingness. And then, things just started happening. And just like when I was having a challenge with being unmanageable and getting high 24 hours a day, I just started praying for the willingness to be willing, and just kept doing that. And the miracle happened. The miracle happened. And I think, falling and being in that place, also combining that with surrendering. Okay, man, I just can't do this anymore. This is not working. This is not working.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And that is very helpful. Kind of on that note, is it possible for it to ever be too late if one is still drawing breath to seek and find peace and recovery? In other words, can I ever get too deep in the hole that I'm digging to seek recovery?
Absolutely not. In my years, I guess 27 years being around the rooms, I went away to a 1-week retreat, and there was a woman who was just coming in. I think she was 80 years old. And the joy in her life, just finally being awake. The other thing that I love about my Step 11 practice at night is that there's a line in here that says, but we must be careful not to drift into worry, remorse, or morbid reflection, for that would diminish our usefulness to others. And others, I've learned from my sponsor, and I never saw it this way, others means me. So when I go into that place of, oh my God, I stayed 20 years in a marriage that was unhappy. I've been 20 years, single, and I'm still alone. That doesn't serve me. So the fact that I'm 66 years old and I feel lit and happy and joyous is pretty cool. Cool. Yeah. So it's never too late, man. Awesome. I have young sponsees, and sometimes they'll say something and I'm on the other end and I'm laughing, thinking I would give anywhere to be, at that time again, but that's okay.
That's awesome. And you are lit, Antonella. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that light and then reflecting that light with us. Before we go into the close up spiel and then going into the Step 11 prayer that we're going to have you close out with, do you have any final words of wisdom for us, the listening audience out here?
You know what? There's actually something in Step 12 that I had refound again that I would like to read quickly if I can. So, and this came up in a situation where, my kids, didn't want to be with me. They wanted to be with their dad, and I was just, allowing them to be there. Or, when somebody just doesn't do what I want them to do. It became clear that if ever we were to feel emotionally secure among grown-up people, we would have to put our lives on a give and take basis. We would have to develop a sense of being in partnership or brotherhood with all those around us. We saw that we would need to give constantly of ourselves without demands for repayment. Step 12. When we did this persistently, we gradually found that people were attracted to us like never before. And even when they failed us, we could be understanding and not too seriously affected. This program is about attraction and not promotion. So that's another big pearl.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. I appreciate that, Antonella. That was a great RICO 12 weekly speaker meeting for all addicts and those wanting to learn more about addiction and the recovery therefrom. If you have any other questions, please go to rico12.com/forum and join in our community to ask those questions and answer other questions that will come up. I invite the audience to come back next week. Next week, since Friday is Christmas Day, I'm going to be completely honest here. I'm going to be spending this live time at 10 o'clock Pacific where I live with my family. But we will have a recording. I will be pre-recording the meeting and reading an original essay on recovery that I'm really excited about. It has the ominous title of I Am Already Dead, but I believe it is a message of hope. So we won't have a live meeting on Christmas Day. I do know that addiction does not sleep, even on Christmas. So the essay will come out in podcast form on Christmas Day, and you can listen there and then. And there are also many other fellowships that will be meeting live on Christmas Day. If you need a fellowship, get there. We will be back live on New Year's Day, the following Friday, with a very cool guest. Tom B. is a member of Alcoholics Anonymous and sober since 1985. We're going to get a lot of wisdom and experience from him. His topic will be My Path to a Medicine Practice, 20 Years of Struggle. If you have not yet gone to rico12.com and submitted your email address, remember you only need to do that once, please get on that invitation list so you can join us live each Friday at noon Central Time. Now, Antonella has asked us to close out with the Step 11 prayer from the 12 and 12, also known as the Prayer of St. Francis. Antonella, the floor is yours to close us out with that prayer.
Thank you. I just want to say quickly, I have 3 years of being clean on my bottom lines in SLAA, which I am truly grateful. Lord, make me a channel of thy peace, that where there is hatred, I may bring love, that where there is wrong, I may bring the spirit of forgiveness, that where there is discord, I may bring harmony, that where there is error, I may bring truth, and that where there is doubt, I may bring faith, that where there is despair, I may bring hope, that where there are shadows, I may bring light, that where there is sadness, I may bring joy. Lord, grant that I may seek rather to comfort than to be comforted, to understand than to be understood, to love than to be loved. For it is by self-forgetting that one finds, it is by forgiving that one is forgiven, and it is by dying that one awakens to eternal life. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Antonella, and thank you, everybody, for being here. Keep coming back. It works if you work it, so work it. You are worth it.
Worth it.
Awesome.
Standing still a moment, carving out this time, reflecting on the landscape of this life of mine. Peaks too high to conquer, streams too wide to cross, troughs too deep to walk through without incurring loss. Yet here I am, still standing tall, despite the rough terrain. One like me survived the storms and walked through wind and rain. Still standing, I will fight the good fight, still searching for glimmers of light, feet still on the ground. I can still be found, standing still.
My wings are torn and tattered, but I know I still can fly. I may not soar unfettered,
the book of life and bind it with a seal.